Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Golf Insider webcast and podcast. I'm Jeff Bergerson, joined as always by my partner, Zachary Turcotte. We're with FantasyGolfInsider.com, your number one resource for everything fantasy golf, including DFS golf. This broadcast is available in podcast form on iTunes and Stitcher. Be sure to check that out. And if you do, give us a good review, give us 5 stars and a good rating. It would help us out quite a bit. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel and know exactly when this comes out every single week. Last week, Zachary, was a good week, I would say, for PGA and Euro, and we heard from a few people, but a special few shout-outs go out to Brian Zell, who's been a longtime member of ours. He had a great week with PGA.
He's just killing it with cash games.
Yeah, it seems like every week he's saying he's doing well. Johnny Pagura let us know that he had a good week. Mike S, 6578, won a couple GPPs on the Euro and PGA. Yeah. And a special one this week. We got a lengthy email from a friend and an FGI member, Sean Keeney. Yeah. And so he told us a little story about how he built a last-minute team early, right before T-Lock. And his lineup consisted of Brendan Steele,
good start,
Patton Kazire, Scott Piercy, Harold Varner III, Johnson Wagner, and Phil Mickelson. That was good for 661 points.
Wow.
Great, right?
Yeah.
Here's the problem. He did enter a $9 GPP, which he, obviously won because, he probably smoked it. But he didn't enter, and this is a mistake that a lot of people make all the time, so I told him he shouldn't feel bad about it. You're not entering the smaller dollar amount with the same team in the big field with the big prize pool. So his 661 points would have destroyed the $3 birdie contest.
$15,000.
Right, would have won him $15,000. And if he entered the $2 and the $1 as well, would have made a few thousand more there too.
Now in his defense, if he put that in early in the morning, right before lineup lock,
it might have been full.
The $3 was probably full at that point.
Yep.
So he probably was able to enter a few things that were still available. So
I get it.
More than likely, it was just an oversight and not necessarily something that was perfect.
So it was a bittersweet victory for Sean, but I told him, it's a mistake that a lot of people make. Just make sure that if you're entering like the 300, we saw it happen last year. One of our members was actually the beneficiary of a $100,000 win because the person who won the $300 and the $27 didn't enter for the extra $3 and would have won the $100,000. So
so if you're gonna step your way down, so if you're a big player out there, you're doing the $300 events each week. If you're doing 3 entries in the $300 and 30 entries in the $27, make sure all of those teams get into the $3.
Yeah, the big one. Yep.
At a minimum,
right?
That's the way that it should end up working.
In case you hit the nuts, like Sean did.
Then you drill everything all the way down. So if you're a $300 player, that's how some of these guys really go off. The pros is they'll hit a big week where they'll win the $300, they'll win the 33 or 27, whichever one it is. They'll do very well on the $3. Instead of just winning $20,000, they may win like $80,000.
That's right,
or $100,000 or something along those lines.
Because you don't hit the nuts very often.
No, so make sure that one time when you hit it just perfect, like he did this week, then you take all of the money off the table.
Congratulations, Sean. Congratulations to everyone else who had a good week last week.
Worked out well for us, and we had anybody who just did cash games did well too.
Yep.
We ended up hitting 2 out of 3 on the optimal. It was a brutal cut line move at the end. I'm at my in-laws' house down in Iowa.
Oh, so it's bad enough the way it is.
I'm already kind of pissy. I'm staring at my phone, pacing around the house. Everybody's looking at me like I'm a madman, which I am around the cut line. It's the worst because you've got the Saturday morning cut sweat. So on the ride down in the car, I'm thinking I'll just watch this for the 3.5-hour road trip that I've got on my hands. And then it's darkness stops it. And you're so close and you're trying to calculate, is this going to stay? Because in the morning, it didn't move a lot. So it was around like -1. I thought, well, there's a good chance if it's not moving, it's going to stay. And then the weather let up and like 10 guys all of a sudden pushed forward. And I thought, oh, okay, well, it's definitely going to be at 2. And then I was comfortable with that. And then I'm counting. I'm like, all right, well, there'd have to be like another 19 guys here to move this thing to 3. And I'm like, well, there's only like 15 right now that are even at 2. about another 8 that are at 1. Like, it doesn't seem real likely that this thing's going to move. And then it freezes that night. So then I wake up the next morning and I'm walking around the house. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, this thing's definitely going to 3. It's definitely going to 3. There's 70 guys there or 69 guys that are at 3 or better at this point, and there's 4 guys here who are at 2 with a few holes left. I'm thinking, well, we're screwed now. I'm going to lose a handful of guys here who I really need to make it through. And then DA Points does the unthinkable, and he bogeys. Like, oh, now we have a little bit of life. And one of the 4 left, he bogeys, so he goes down to 1. So there's 2 guys left out there. Seamus Power and JP Postone, who are out on the course. Couple of rookies, coming up off the web.com tour, and I'm just watching each shot go along. Seamus is on the edge, he's on the fringe from 14 and a half feet. He misses his putt for birdie, so okay, good deal. So now we're just down to 1 guy, and I see Postone get to 8.5 feet. And it comes down to whether or not he sinks an 8.5 footer to either push it to 2 or to push it to 3 or to leave it at 2 and throw. Glover would have gone through for me. Vegas would have gone through Hadwin. All guys we owned in cash. Right. All guys I own pretty heavily in tournaments. If it stays there, if it stays at 2, I end up crushing this weekend for GPPs and cash games. We won 2 out of 3, but we would have won 3 out of 3. And of course, the 8.5. There's no doubt he's
right.
He
he's sinking it.
He crushes it, and then of course the rest of the weekend he does nothing.
Right.
He falls to the absolute bottom of the leaderboard. So it was a real brutal swing. But fortunately for us, we had Steele on the right week this time for one of the rare times, and Steele, very un-Steele-esque performance, kind of a slow start, and then roared to life over the weekend, and Sunday came back. What did he shoot, like -6 or -7? -7, I think he shot to end up posting the clubhouse lead, and Kazire couldn't hold ground, couldn't make a birdie on the end.
It's kind of sweet how it bridges the gap between the last football game and the start of the late game, the end of the golf tournament. That was money.
It was exciting to flip back and forth. We had a good finish, and we were just commenting last week, when is Pat and Kazire going to be good again?
You asked me that, and I said, I feel a runner-up finish coming this week, right?
That was exactly what you said. And then he said, and I will absolutely not play him in any tournament lineups now.
Something like that.
So he roared back. Maybe he's just Mr. Fall Season. Maybe a couple of these guys are just Mr. Fall Season. Seeing it a little bit with Steele, who he did really well last fall. I mean, he would have won the Summit last year had he not completely caved in, and he had a couple other real nice finishes. Kevin Na had a real strong finish again here at this event. He's another guy who's just kind of killed it in the falls. There's a couple of guys here. It seems like the pattern is to come into some of these events and play really well. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on Kazire to see if he can do what he did last fall when he had a couple of top 10 finishes.
And then
like
shed the rest of the
next guy. Yeah, he made a lot of cuts, but he just didn't really have that many competitive finishes throughout the season. So
that was PGA was good. I had Steele in my hardcore core. We had Steele all over the place. British Masters was also good for us. I had in the core Alex Noren, Wiesberger, Bland, Fleetwood, all guys in the top 4.
I feel like the only thing holding us back from making money on DraftKings at this point
is money being offered for the win.
Is DraftKings. What the fuck is going on over there? Right. It's like we go through this every year. We think, all right, there's good momentum. The contests still fill. There's still excitement about golf because you've got a hardcore group of people who play every week. I mean, the $3 was full last week, and what do we get this week? Half the size of last week. So
like our neighborhood is pretty much could fill that contest.
Yeah, so it went from 78,000 in the $3 down to like 39,000 this week, and it's a decent field this week. So I mean, I don't know if they're just too tired to run the thing over there. It's such an exhaustive effort to just collect all the monies that flow in every time they fill these things up. I mean, I get it. Football is here. They always give the bullshit excuse. Well, NBA season's starting up. What does that have to do with just putting the contest out and letting it fill up naturally? I don't understand what the problem is there with that. But we go through it every year. The events are still fun. I mean, this is
it's a very fun event. I'm just not real motivated, and I won't enter a lot because of it. So I think they're costing themselves a ton of money. Because you won't even have an overlay, but even if you did, you're doing better than us being disinterested in even bothering building a ton of lineups.
Yeah, I mean, you'd want to keep the interest because eventually football ends. Every year, January will roll around and the playoffs will get here and interest will slowly start to fade and people will have to find a different place to take their addiction.
Right.
And golf,
easy Tiger.
Golf is that natural place. It's nobody likes fucking NHL or NBA. No. Those are pretty useless in terms of daily sports.
Speaking of addiction, should we take our shot of the week?
Hey, absolutely. Who we taking it to? I think I know this one. I think I posted this one.
Sometimes it's
Twitter
difficult to identify a real clear shot of the week. This one was quite obvious.
To a lot of people.
Yeah, it's our boy CH3, Charles Howell III, who not only he's Mr. Cut Maker, missed the cut completely in a pretty weak field overall.
Oh, it was bullshit.
But
too.
B, he missed it in absolutely epic fashion.
Yeah, if you're gonna go,
at
least make it memorable. He did that.
Oh my God! So coming into his 36th hole, he needed a birdie at the time
to stay alive,
to make the cut,
keep his hopes going.
Right. Yeah. And he proceeded to. He couldn't get a birdie. He couldn't get a par. He couldn't even muster a bogey, a double, or even a triple. He threw up a 9-ball.
Yeah.
For just the exit out. I think he 3-putted from 2 feet 3 inches.
Yeah, I think at that point
epic.
he was just angry, just kicking it around.
Good God.
Somebody's like, oh, he just threw up a snowman. I said, no, he wishes he threw up a snowman. I didn't even know what you call a 9.
Right.
So it was sad. It was ugly. I mean, he started out ugly. He roared back a little bit on Friday. I thought there's a chance here that he does something. And then he had 2 par 5s left. He proceeded to not just murder the last hole. He bogeyed the par 5 before that too. So he lost.
He sucked.
So he instead of gaining 2 or 3 strokes on those, he loses 5.
Right.
And obviously that definitely crushed him from making the cut. So I don't know what happened there. I know he's still a little bit, he was coming back from injury, but he had a couple tournaments under his belt in the fall, so it shouldn't be.
And we got another chance of rostering him this week in Malaysia.
And there's no cut this week.
Right.
I actually don't mind rostering him this week. Oh, and he has a tremendous tournament history there, too, from off the top of my head. So, Charles Howell III, killer of cash game teams. This one is to you, buddy.
Speaking of Malaysia, that's the host of this week's tournament.
It's like some late night hours.
Yeah, Kuala Lumpur. Last year was right around Halloween, so I remember staying up real late and watching it. This year, same course, Kuala Lumpur Golf and Country Club, 6,985 yards. It's a par 72. Like Zach mentioned, it is a no-cut event. So it's important to adjust your strategy because of that. So maybe put a higher weighting on scorers who you might stay a little bit away from because they're more volatile. We have 3 years of tournament history, 2013 through 2015.
Yeah.
Plus you can throw in the Malaysian Open from last year, which
we did.
Yeah, some of the players. You can find all of those under the tournament history page under the PGA tab on our website. You can find the Euro under the Euro tab if you're a Euro member.
Up until now, this has pretty much been the Ryan Moore Open.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least the first few years, and the Gary Woodland runner-up.
Yeah, right.
It was very odd that they both took first and second in back-to-back years.
Right.
In 13
very different players
14.
As well.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't see a ton of rhyme or reason on why certain guys did really well versus some of the other guys.
Although I would tend to go a little bit more on the accuracy side.
The ball strikers.
Yeah, ball strikers. So that under key stats, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained putting, birdie or better like always. And then I'm putting a little bit of emphasis on ball striking and accuracy.
The guys who did real well last year, Hideki Matsuyama, obviously one of the best ball strikers on tour. Adam Scott did really well here. Ryan Moore has done well here year after year. These are all guys who find the fairway and then find the greens. Kevin Na, another super accurate guy. So those are all definitely guys I think will be. It's kind of interesting that Justin Thomas ended up coming out the winner. He's not necessarily known for a guy who's always hitting fairways.
No.
Can be a little bit erratic at times, but he's another guy who had a real nice fall last year.
Yeah, he did, and he damn near missed the cut this week, and then comes storming back.
I know he hit the fifth.
Amazing.
if he doesn't hit a 15-footer on 17 and then go on and birdie 18 as well, he ends up, the cut ends up being at 2, basically. So his miracle effort is one of many that helped push the cut to -3. So, he's been playing really well lately, though. All of a sudden, he's posting a lot of top 10 finishes.
Yep.
And his price is reflective of that. So,
yes, sir.
So those are guys at the top. I think where it will get trickier is as we start to look towards the middle.
A lot of high-quality names in that middle, though, in that 8K range.
Yeah, a little bit on the not as many super experienced here.
No, not here necessarily.
Are you ready to go back to Brandon Grace yet?
Oh, I'm not so sure. When he didn't do well at the Alfred Dunhill, and he is big-time links stud, and he normally does well on that course, that kind of told me something that his game isn't in a very good spot. A
little bit off.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in the high 8s. I don't know why we would get off the steel train at this point. He did. I mean, a lot of people are going to be on that train.
Right.
But at 8,800, there's not a ton of value in that range. I think Russell Knox at 8,200.
He's a guy I like a lot.
Definitely a guy to zero in on.
Yep.
He did well here last year. He was 21st, and that kind of launched him into having a really good season. He won the WGC
the next week. Yeah.
After that, and then went on and had a bunch of other great finishes. And in terms of the players that we were mentioning at the top, he lines up really well.
No doubt.
With a lot of those names. And at 8,200, that's just a cheaper guy with a fair amount of upside. So I like that a lot right there.
I agree.
Coming down the list a little bit, Tony Finau's been playing well at 8,100. Again, this wouldn't necessarily, he doesn't really fit in with a lot of those other guys that I mentioned.
But it's a no-cut event. There'll be a lot of birdies.
And he's got a lot of birdie opportunities. That's why we had him last week.
Right.
If you can get Tony Finau in the low 8,000s, you just take him because he's capable of putting up a lot of points for you. Even if he tends to finish kind of in that 15 to 25 range as opposed to, in the top 10 kind of range overall. Those are both guys I like. Are there any guys that you're looking at in the 8K or even a little bit lower?
Yeah, well, I would add on Berger in that range at 8,500. I think that's a good price, although I can never seem to hit the right Berger weeks.
No, he's either top 10 or like 70th in events like this.
Yep.
Or he'll just withdraw after hitting a shot.
Right, that too.
Hopefully we won't get any of that nonsense.
And then how about Scott Piercy at 8,900?
Yeah, he's playing great. He had another nice weekend.
He played well here last year.
Yeah, he had a really good season. I felt like he took his game up a level. Last year was a lot more competitive. A lot of second place finishes throughout the year. Dropping down a little bit at 7,500. Guy who burned us a little bit last week, Johnny Vegas. He had about a 9-foot birdie putt to get himself clear and make the cut last weekend. Gets a big price dip this week going from 9,100 down to 7,500. He's definitely a guy who can score a lot. I think his game is in a lot better place. He missed by 1 stroke last week. And it's the first cut that he's missed in quite a while. He hadn't really missed a lot of cuts in the later half of the season. So definitely not, a super accurate type of guy off the tee at all. But he's been better in all phases of his game overall. I think, you don't have to worry about him missing the cut. 7,500, I think you get pretty good value there from Johnny Vegas. So
is this a Mark Leishman week for you at 7K?
I don't know. He hasn't done that much lately. I mean, he hasn't really had any real big, remarkable types of finishes. Now, the stats last year looked really good for most of the year, and he kept appearing in write-ups for me again in the end. So I thought, okay, tee to green looks good. He's putting the ball pretty well. What's not to like here? But the results just weren't coming.
No.
Yeah, he'd give you that 30th to 40th place finish. Maybe he'd jump up and take 15th every once in a while, but I just haven't seen enough to get too excited, so I will use him sparingly. He's kind of a 5 to 10% guy. I probably will jump back in on the CH3 bandwagon this week, down at 7,000. There's no cut coming this week. Lots of birdie opportunities. He's obviously a guy who can score on the par fives. And there's not a lot that I love.
People will be discouraged. His ownership will be down.
A little bit, I hope. The tournament history here, he does have good history. He's got a couple of top 10s, so I think that will bring people back. But there's not a lot of names that just jump off the page in the 6,000 range. I mean,
Well, what kind of roster construction are you looking at this week? Are you going to go stars and scrubs? You're going to stay in the middle?
Yeah, you need guys at the top who are going to finish top 5. Even in cash games, you're going to need guys who are finishing near the top. So if you're just balanced, you better hope that your theory that somebody's going to come out of nowhere and win it pays off for you.
Yeah.
So you're going to need some guys. You need 2 or 3 guys kind of near the top. And then from there, I will probably try to find just a handful of guys in the 7K range and lower to fill in with those guys. Just a couple of guys that I will be looking at. Dropping down, I think Adam had one at 6,300. If we go down,
go any lower.
It doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't go any lower than that. I mean, there's a couple. I think it's 62, 61 range,
SSP
maybe.
Chowrasia.
And that's it. But Adam Hadwin is a decent player.
Yeah.
I don't think he takes last place this week.
No, probably not.
No, I mean, and he's another one of those guys last week. He missed by 1 stroke.
Right.
He had a double bogey. He was charging back. He had a double bogey late. Birdied the last hole. I thought, yay, Hadwin's going to make it for one of our cash game teams. And then, unfortunately, the line got pushed up. But he missed by 1 shot.
Yeah.
Very capable player.
Very underpriced.
Yeah, I think it's 6,300 there. He's a guy who could very easily finish in the upper half of the field. So, I mean, just in terms of risk versus reward, you're not risking that much. You've got plenty of upside there for him. So I think there's a guy like Ches Reavie, also at 6,300, is a player who you get nervous about rostering him a lot of weeks with the cutout there. He's very streaky. He'll make 3 or 4 in a row and look great, and then he'll miss 3 in a row. Without the cut here, I don't worry as much about that. He improved so many facets of his game last year, particularly his tee to green game was much improved over previous years. So I'm pretty comfortable getting him in on some rosters. Is there any other names that I'm missing out on?
Yeah, a name that I'm surprised you haven't at least mentioned is in the field.
You going to say Hudson Swafford?
No. No, Pat Perez. He's back.
You're shocked that I skipped over
I'm not
Pat
saying
Perez?
that you would like him. I'm just saying that he's there. It's nice. It's exciting. He's back.
Is that exciting?
Yes. Pat Perez, are you kidding me?
I mean, he's not even priced that cheap, though.
No, he's 67?
6,700.
Yep. Or you could have him or Adam Hadwin for 400 less.
What a slap in the face to guys who played all of last year. It's not like this is a Pat Perez event.
I want to see his hair. Is it longer?
I don't even care.
It's exciting.
I'd just like to see him make a couple of cuts. So yeah, I won't.
Well, he'll make one this week, so you'll be happy.
I won't be. I won't be rostering Pat Perez.
So now that we've covered the middle and the bottom, should we go to the top?
Well, I mean, we didn't really skip the top.
We didn't talk about the top.
We did too.
Not really.
Yeah, we talked about we want ball strikers. We mentioned Matsuyama.
Yeah, I know.
We mentioned Adam
But like
Scott.
Specifically, you'd be proud. I had Paul Casey last week.
Mentioned Ryan Moore. Oh, you had him.
I wrote him up in my hardcore core. I had him on a couple of rosters.
You actually put him in play.
I did.
Is that the first time?
Made me throw up in my mouth a little bit.
That can't have been the first time.
No, it wasn't the first time, but it just still hurts every single time I do it.
Sure.
It doesn't feel right, but he's locked in right now. He's playing really good golf, which pisses me off even more because I want him to fail. It's so bad.
I just want his career to implode right there.
I do. I want him to develop the yips. And
I think we covered that pretty well. I mean, we mentioned Matsuyama, we mentioned Adam Scott, we mentioned the ball strikers here. Obviously, Ryan Moore, I think, will be incredibly popular. He's playing really well right now. He's dominated this tournament. So I think a lot of my cash games will, at least 2 out of 3, will probably have Ryan Moore in them up at the top.
Okay. So he's pretty much the guy up top that you like the most.
He's the guy. I mean, Ryan Moore and Kevin now will both be on quite a few rosters.
All right.
I may skip over that top couple guys just a little bit there. And Casey is that salary makes it a little bit difficult to put in a lot of the other guys that you would want. You end up having to squeeze a lot of guys in at the lower.
Is ownership on Patrick Reed going to be up coming off of his Ryder Cup heroics?
I don't think so.
No?
No. I think Paul Casey will have a few. I think Matsuyama will have a few at the top. I think it'll really gravitate towards Scott, Thomas, and Ryan Moore, and Kevin Na. Those would be the guys. So I think the top couple will get skipped just because the other guys have such strong pedigree here in terms of how they play. I mean, So I think the fact that they're going to look at him and they're going to say, well, he hasn't played in a few weeks. Although he was great at the Ryder Cup, obviously. He's been good, not amazing here at this tournament. And I think tournament history really does dominate events like this in terms of people's perception for what they want to get into their lineups.
Right.
So I don't actually think it will be as high because if every other guy here has got top 5 appearances, just within the last few years or wins, I think that's where the crowd will move. So it may actually be just a shade contrarian, just a shade. I'm not going to say he's going to be under-owned, but I think there won't be as much ownership for Patrick Reed up at the top this week.
Okay. For everyone else, why don't you save for the daily spin?
Yeah, for everybody we didn't cover already.
All 4 of the rest of the guys.
Everybody that we were already...
Do you want to talk about the Portugal Masters briefly? The contests are not very exciting this week, but we'll throw it out. I mean, I'll do my hardcore core. I'll do the optimum lineup that the model produces.
It's good right at the top. I mean, each week they're able to get a pretty good crop of guys in at the top. This week it's just tough because you and I were talking offline here before the show started. And you get to that middle and bottom range, lower 7s and 6s. I mean, there's nothing available.
No.
You just look at the second page of our tournament sheet. It's all red.
Right.
All red from missed cuts over the last few weeks. You're not finding anybody in that middle range who's on a hot stretch. So you mean some of our favorites, although I know Dredge was not a favorite this last week. He was the one who kind of killed us.
The Optimal's been good, though, the last 2 weeks.
Optimal's been pretty
won
good.
last week and the week before.
Optimal has been pretty good, but the guys, those middle guys are kind of missing this week. The Dredge and the Bland. I mean, those guys who are always around like 775 to 8,000 range to help you fill out your rosters. Those guys are unavailable this week. So you've got... And there's really not that many guys that are even 8K or above.
Give me a couple names that you're targeting this week.
Well, how about if we start at the top? Why don't we say Alexander Noren?
He's good at golf.
He's playing pretty good.
Yeah.
Thomas Peters is up there.
Yep.
He's playing well. These are guys who are just under 12K, though, for the week. So the problem with rostering these guys, if you grab one of them, then you're going to have to either fill it with middle 7 guys or drop down into the twilight zone in the 6K range and grab 1 or 2 of those guys. And there were literally only 2 guys. I challenged you before the show. I said, find 2 names in the 6K range.
And I did. I delivered.
And you found exactly 2 and no more.
I don't remember what the 2 were. Oh, yeah. Nino Bertazio was one.
Who has been good earlier in the year and a little up and down of late. And then Callum Shinkwin. Those are the 2 guys who just gave away everything.
He rates out well in the sportsbook odds. Shinkwin did for, some reason, I don't know, but
there's just not
there isn't a lot else
that get me very
I like Alejandro Caniceres at 7,300 this week.
So
I think
not bad.
That's decent in the low 7s.
I think Padraig Harrington will bounce back.
You do?
I do like Padraig.
I'm not a Paddy guy ever.
I think he will bounce back this week. This has traditionally been an event that he's been pretty good at. I think 7,300 you get a good price.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take the risk, this is the week to do it. So dropping down there, David Lipsky has been pretty good over the last few months. He's in the middle 7K range. Not a lot of other names that I am loving there in the middle. Robert Carlson at 8,300. Right. Now you're getting kind of like to the price average.
I'm really anxious to see what the model produces this week.
Because it's going to have to throw out a couple of wild cards.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. So I always like seeing the optimal when it comes out.
I think this week, in terms of strategy, when I was looking at it today and I'm thinking cash games, because Euro has been better. And when the fields have been stronger the last few weeks, the players have been better. The owners have been better. So it's been, instead of being like a 4 of 6 team that will cash with one decent guy, now the last few weeks it's been 5 of 6. 5 of 6 has been, you've needed 5 of 6, and it's had to be a decent 5 of 6. This is a week, with this week of a field, I really feel like you should focus on getting 2 studs through near the top, right? I mean, that's kind of going to be my strategy. Find 2 guys near the top of this range that you feel very comfortable with in terms of pay up. Pay up for a couple of 10K guys, put those guys in your cash game roster, and then find 4 guys that you're going to have to kind of roll the dice on a little bit. Because if you can get 2 of those 4 through, I think you're going to have a very good shot. Because I don't see a lot of guys nobody's getting 6 of 6 this week.
No, it's impossible.
5 of 6 is going to be very, very difficult.
Yep.
So I think 4 of 6 is kind of going to be that number this week, where if you can hit 4 of 6 and have 1 or 2 guys who are real competitive near the top, like a Nora and a Peters,
right?
I think that's going to get you through in cash. Okay. So that's sort of the cut and dry strategy, I think, for me this week. And obviously with the contests as small as they are, I'm not going to go as crazy.
No.
My exposure will be a little bit limited. I'll still play some cash games.
Yeah, I played almost all cash last week. A little bit of GPP. But
don't go crazy. GPP is so tough because you just really don't know the names.
Right.
The names here are just not as familiar. So
right.
you really don't understand what is the range for some of these players. So, yeah. So that's your own. It should be fun and exciting, and yeah, by Thursday morning when you wake up and you see where your lineup
right.
is.
I always like that. Yeah. Lineup block's going to be early for PGA this week. Do we even know when it is going to be lineup block?
No, because they had it posted wrong.
On Wednesday morning at 5 a.m.
Like,
I know
no,
that's stupid.
That's not what
but they change it oftentimes. So I'm guessing it'll be Wednesday night, correct?
It should be.
Yeah. Wednesday night, 10, 11, midnight, something like that?
I think so.
Okay, all right. So just remember that. Don't wake up early Thursday morning and think you're going to get in. So
yeah, it's not 24 hours different than us normally.
No, I don't think so. So if you have any questions for us, feel free to email us at info@fantasygolfinsider.com. Our Twitter handle is @fantasygolfers. Also, we offer a Periscope for last-minute lineup questions on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. So you can check those out as well. Anything else to add, Zachary?
No.
That's all for us this week for the CIMB Classic and the Portugal Masters. Join us next week. Talk to you soon.
Good luck. All right. You're really feeling it. I'm going to slap you a couple times.
We are with FantasyGolfInsider.com, your number one resource for everything fantasy golf, including DFS golf. I'm going to kill myself. Shh. Take two. And action.